Hananiah and his wife Shapira had recently sold a piece of property, but instead of bringing the full amount of the sale to the emissaries, as many other believers had done, they secretly held back a portion for themselves. Together, they had agreed on this deception, yet Hananiah approached the emissaries as if he were offering everything. Kefa, seeing through the facade, confronted them. Hananiah, why have you let the adversary fill your heart with deceit? Why have you lied to the Ruach Haqodesh, holding back part of the money? The land was yours before you sold it, and even afterward. The money was yours to do with as you wished. So why have you done this? You have not lied to men, but you have lied to Yahuwah. At these words, Hananiah's face went pale. A sudden gasp escaped him, and he collapsed where he stood, lifeless. A wave of fear swept over everyone who witnessed it. Without delay, a group of young men stepped forward, wrapped his body, carried him out, and buried him. About 3 hours later, Shapira arrived, completely unaware of what had transpired. Kefa turned to her. Tell me, he asked, is this the full amount you and your husband received for the land? She nodded confidently. Yes, that is the price. Kefa's expression darkened. Why did you conspire to test the Ruach of Adonai? Listen, the men who buried your husband are at the door, and they will carry you out as well. Before she could respond, a sharp pain seized her, and she crumpled to the floor, dead. The young men entered once more, found her lifeless body, and carried her out to be buried beside her husband. The entire community, and indeed everyone who heard what had happened, was overcome with fear. Meanwhile, the emissaries continued performing miracles and signs among the people. The believers, united in heart and purpose, gathered openly in Shlomo's colonnade. Though no outsiders dared to join them out of fear, the people held them in great reverence. And still the movement grew. Throngs of men and women placed their trust in Adonai. So great was their faith that people carried the sick into the streets, laying them on stretchers and mats, hoping that even Kefa's shadow might fall upon them as he passed by. Crowds from the surrounding towns flocked to Yerushalayim, bringing the sick and those tormented by unclean spirits, and every one of them was healed. But not everyone rejoiced. The Kohen Haggadol and his associates, all members of the Tzedakim, seethed with jealousy. Unable to tolerate the growing influence of the emissaries, they had them arrested and thrown into the public jail. Yet, during the night, a Malachim of Adonai appeared, unlocking the prison doors. Leading the emissaries outside, the Malachim commanded, Go, stand in the temple courts, and continue telling the people about this new life. Without hesitation, they obeyed. At the break of dawn, they entered the temple and began teaching once more. Meanwhile, the Kohen Haggadol and his council convened a meeting of the Sanhedrin, summoning the full assembly of Israel's elders. They then sent officers to the jail to bring the prisoners, but when the officers arrived, they found the cells empty. Alarmed, they rushed back to report, We found the jails securely locked, the guards standing at the doors, but when we opened them, there was no one inside. The captain of the temple police and the head Kohanim exchanged uneasy glances, uncertain of what this could mean. Then a man burst into the chamber with startling news. Listen, the men you imprisoned are standing in the temple courts, teaching the people. Acting quickly, the captain and his officers went to retrieve them. This time, they handled the situation carefully, fearful that the crowds might turn on them if they used force. They led the emissaries to the Sanhedrin, where the Kohen Haggadol glared at them in frustration. We gave you strict orders not to teach in his name, yet you have filled Yerushalayim with your message, and now you're trying to make us responsible for this man's death. Kefa and the other emissaries stood firm. We must obey Yahuwah rather than men, Kefa declared. The Elohim of our fathers raised up Yahusha, the very one you executed, by hanging him on a stake, but Yahuwah has exalted him to his right hand as ruler and Mashiach, to bring Yisrael to repentance and grant forgiveness of sins. We are witnesses to these things, and so is the Ruach Haqodesh, whom Yahuwah has given to those who obey him first. At these words, fury erupted within the Sanhedrin. Many among them wanted to put the emissaries to death on the spot. But then one man stood, Gamliel, a Pharisee and a highly respected teacher of the Torah. He motioned for the emissaries to be removed from the room, then turned to address the council. Men of Israel, be careful how you handle these people, he warned. Remember Torah, who once claimed to be someone great? He gathered about 400 followers, but when he was killed, his movement fell apart. Then there was Yehuda Haglili, who led a revolt at the time of the Roman census. He too perished and his followers scattered. In this case, my advice is simple. Leave these men alone. If their purpose is merely of human origin, it will collapse on its own. But if it is from Yahuwah, you will not be able to stop them. You might even find yourselves fighting against Yahuwah." His words resonated with the council, and they relented, though not before ordering the emissaries flogged. They commanded them once more not to speak in Yahusha's name, and they released them. Yet, as the emissaries left, there was no bitterness in their hearts, only joy. They rejoiced that they had been counted worthy to suffer disgrace for the sake of Yahusha. And not for a single day did they stop proclaiming the good news, whether in the temple courts or in private homes. Yahusha was Hamashiach, and nothing would silence them.